Hey, thanks for downloading GardenFork Radio. This is Eric. I have this kind of eclectic DIY how-to show, and I also have a companion YouTube channel. Today I have on Sharon, and we're going to talk about cooking and campfire cooking. Hey, Sharon.
Hi.
Should we tell them the secret we have between us?
Sure. Go ahead.
We are cousins.
Long lost cousins.
You are my only family member that understands what I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So Eric, what do you do now? And I'm like, well, I have a YouTube channel, a podcast. Oh. And then there's this silence.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple people to listen to you.
Oh, cool. Oh, good. So we email often enough, and I was doing some videos about trying to cook with the Dutch oven on my Weber grill. I was trying to make no-knead bread with various failure is part of GardenFork there. And you sent me an email and said, you know, you politely were saying to me, you're doing it wrong, Eric. So.
Yeah, well, the first one I think burned pretty badly on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so basically you were grilling the bread, which, you know, you can do, but to bake bread, you need heat from the top, more heat from the top than the bottom. So, you know, if you go on the internet, you can find all kinds of charts on how to regulate the temperature using coals on the top and bottom of your cast iron Dutch oven. You know, tuning it to even 25 degrees if you're using like charcoal briquettes. You know, if you're just using, you know, coals from wood, obviously you kind of have to estimate, but you can fine tune it pretty well.
Is there a way to figure out the internal temperature, or are you kind of like counting out the briquettes and then kind of gut feeling it?
Well, I'm gut feeling it. I don't have anything fancy to do that. You know, maybe there's some sort of a thermometer that could, you know, you have them in your. I have had one like for a microwave where the wire actually comes out the side of the door of the microwave and tells you what temperature the inside of your chicken is. Huh. So maybe they make something like that for, you know, over a blazing fire. I don't know, but
well, I know your husband likes gadgets, so perhaps I will mention this to him.
Well, you know, it's funny when I told him that you called me a camper, he laughed. I'm not a camper. I am a glamper.
Oh, so am I. Yeah.
I mean, I take my cooking while camping very seriously. We may have hamburgers and brats once, but we'll have baked chicken and cinnamon rolls in the morning and freshly made biscuits and baked steak and, you know, not just soup hanging over the big campfire. So, yeah, I have a lot of gadgets I take with me when I camp.
That's fine. So how would you can you make biscuits in a Dutch oven then?
Yes. Yes. If you look on the internet, and I have several cookbooks that have similar charts, but Pinterest, I noticed the other night that there's if you put in campfire cooking, you'll find lots of charts that say, you know, 6 briquettes on the bottom and 12 on top, and that'll give you an internal temperature of, you know, whatever. I don't have it memorized. But yeah, and so I generally take not a 5-gallon bucket, but a bucket of briquettes with me, and one of those chimneys to get them lit.
The charcoal chimney starter thing.
Yeah. And some newspaper or whatever to get them started. No starter fluid or anything like that, because you don't want that near your food.
Right.
But once those get nice and white, you know, if you have a place set out by your campfire where you're not going to burn down the whole place on dirt or whatever, or on concrete pad is even better. You put your coals down, put your cast iron on top of it, and then put the rest of them on top. Obviously, if you can do it in a place where it's not going to catch a lot of wind, that's even better.
Does your Dutch oven have the little legs built in, or do you have like a trivet or something?
My first one did not, but I bought myself a second one, and it has the legs and it has the lip around the top. And that makes it so much easier. You can set them directly on the coals, but I like a little space there so that you don't get those hot spots.
Yeah.
And of course, you can make a lip around the top with some foil to hold the briquettes.
There's actually, I made banana bread and I made a video about it, and I showed how you could do that, because I just have your oven style Dutch oven.
Okay. You can also buy a small rack. Like if you're baking something, like I've seen people put like a loaf pan into their cast iron Dutch oven. There's a rack you can buy that sits on the bottom that will hold that pan up off the surface, which helps really circulate the heat around it. We also, I do a lot of baking when I'm camping. But I also, like a friend of ours who is a blacksmith, made us a tripod. It's about, I think folded up, it's about 6 foot tall, maybe a little taller.
Oh, wow.
Has 3 legs. You can buy them at Cabela's, but I've only seen short ones. But this one sits way up above the fire. And then he made a series of hooks so that I can raise and lower my cast iron pot to sit either right on the fire or be 3 feet above the fire. So I can really regulate how fast, a soup or stew is going to be boiling away. And I love that. We don't go anywhere without that tripod. And I don't loan it out. I love it. It's my favorite camping tool.
I could probably hack together that with some angle iron from like a metal mattress frame. People throw those out all the time. Yeah,
he has them. It's just the straight, I don't know, what is it, wrought iron? I don't know what you call it. With loops at the top, and they're just looped together so that it folds up into, I can almost get my 2 hands around it to fold it up and put it in a corner in the garage. And then he just made some hooks. And of course, I've seen them use chain, chain with hooks, and that would work too. We were just, our town has a First Fridays thing where stores stay open late, the bars, everybody brings food out to the sidewalk. You can, kind of like a carnival. And there was a fellow there selling these sorts of things, tripods. He was some sort of a metal fabricator, and he had a winch on his. It was pretty slick, but he wanted a lot of money for it.
Yeah. I mean, simple works,
Yeah.
So walk us through making some biscuits. Are you using like a pre-mixed dough, or you're going to be from scratch, aren't you?
No, I'm from scratch.
Yeah,
sorry.
I knew that.
But, biscuit works too. I just make up the biscuit dough, and I look on my chart to see what temperature. I think it's usually 450 or something like that. And I, heat up that number of coals, and biscuits cook very quickly. So that's, if it says you need a total of 20 coals with 6 on the bottom and 14 on the top, that's really all you're going to need. If you're cooking something like, chicken, maybe you wanted to make some kind of chicken dish, and that's going to take you an hour. Well, you need to keep a supply of coals ready because, obviously they kind of fall apart, and you have to replace them. So if you're cooking something that's going to take a little bit longer, then, have a supply of hot coals ready. But biscuits, cinnamon rolls take 20 minutes. Usually you're good with the coals you start with. And I just put them in a well-greased cast iron pot, and they do pretty well.
Wow, now I want to drive over there.
We grew up camping, my brother and I, and actually I think my younger brother, Brad, also, he camped for a while, but then after I left for college, I think my folks started going to motels. So. But, we always had pancakes and sandwiches and hot dogs, and, it wasn't anything particularly fancy. Dad, usually used the camp stove, and I do have a Coleman camp stove that I use, but I don't use it very much.
Like one of those Coleman, those green ones where it flips open?
Well, yeah, just, it has burners. It uses those little...
propane tanks?
Little quart-sized propane tanks. I do have one of those, but I don't use it very much. They scare me, actually. And with that tripod, I can heat water for washing dishes, for making coffee. I mean, that's the first thing I do in the morning when I get up camping is put some hot water on for coffee or tea or whatever.
The coffee though is not in the Dutch oven though, right?
No, coffee's not. I just have a regular old, one of those speckled pots.
Enamelware ones, yeah.
An enamelware pot that I just hang on the tripod and heat the water up. And then I either use like some sort of a pour over. They sell these little funnels you can put on top of a coffee cup. Or if I'm brave enough, I take my French press. I've broken one camping already, but it does make a better cup of coffee.
I love the French press, but they are prone to breaking, even in my house, even just in the kitchen.
They're very, very fragile, yes.
You can make really good iced coffee with them. You can take like a cup of coffee and cold water and basically just pour it in there and leave the plunger at the top and put it in your fridge overnight. And then the next morning, just push the plunger through, and that's like cold brewed. It's delicious coffee.
Yes. I make cold brew, but I generally make about a half gallon at a time. And so when I'm ready to strain it in the morning, I put it through my French press, get out the coffee grounds.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah. Now, I did see that they had a stainless steel French press, which that would go camping pretty well. But yeah, I take a Coleman stove, my tripod, of course. I love going through Cabela's. And a couple of years ago, I did buy myself, I don't know what they call, whether it's a kitchen setup, but it's a 3-tiered kind of a table system. And so there's room for a basin for, throwing dirty dishes. There's a nice place for my stove, and then a small prep area. And then there's some storage underneath that you can use. And that's pretty nice because sometimes picnic tables are not as readily available as you'd like.
No.
We've always gone to a private place. Well, we grew up camping, but then Bob and I decided on our honeymoon we would go camping in the Smoky Mountains on our way back to Kansas. And we borrowed my parents' tent, big 8-man tent, set up in the Smoky Mountain State or the federal park or whatever it is, national park. And it proceeded to start to pour. And it rained all night long. Of course, all we had were sleeping bags, no air mattresses, no shovels to dig a trench around the tent, nothing like that, totally ill-prepared. And the next morning, as soon as the dawn broke, we packed up a sopping wet tent, wet sleeping bags, got into the car and drove into Pigeon Forge. And all the motels had specials running because it was pre-season for like $7 for hot, for a room and hot breakfast. we spent $13 at the national park. So that was the last of our camping for probably 20 years. We did take the kids camping with a pop-up tent, a trailer tent once. But yeah, our kids were not raised as campers.
So did you get any of this open fire cooking from your mom, or was this something that
no.
when you kind of revisited camping?
Yeah, no, it's just been in the last few years. When we moved here to Indiana, the church we belong to goes on a camping trip every fall, and it's for 3 days. And so we decided we'd go try it. We bought a tent and new sleeping bags, and it's a blast to go when you're with friends.
Yes.
I mean, we just sit around the campfire and laugh so hard, and drink coffee and talk into the night. I mean, we just had so much fun. And so then the next year there was more equipment, and then the next year more. So we just got into it in the last, let's see, we moved here in 2000, somewhere around there. So it's just been the last 20 years that we've done some more camping. And I've got arthritis, and so sleeping on the ground is not my favorite thing. So we're actually looking into investing in one of those teardrop campers.
Oh yeah.
They look pretty cool. So we're considering that. Probably not right away, but in the next couple of years.
When you do your cooking with the tripod, are you bringing firewood? Do you buy it where you're going camping, or?
Here in Indiana, you're not allowed to transport firewood unless the bark is on it, unless the bark is off of it.
Yeah.
And we had a ton of firewood in the home we lived in a few years ago, but we don't now. So usually the campground that we've gone to as a group, they have lots of fallen trees, and they have a pile of firewood. So I'm not sure what we would do if we, set out on the road and went someplace by ourselves. I think we'd probably take some firewood, but with that Dutch, or with that,
tripod.
What is that? With that beetle that's going around.
Oh yeah.
The laws about transporting firewood can get you in some trouble. So yeah, I'm not sure what we would do.
Up by my house, up in the woods, there are state campgrounds all over the place, and there are entrepreneurial neighbors who literally build a shed out of pallets and just put a sign up that says Campwood, and they bundle together, 6 pieces of oak or ash or whatever, and it's like $5 a bundle, and they have a little honor box. Well, it is Connecticut, so.
Well, it's the same way here. But I noticed that there's a park near here called France Park, and I noticed that they have just a huge area of firewood. And so I don't know if they sell it or not, but that would be ideal, to be able to get it there.
So when you're you're getting it ready in the morning, your fire is kind of like coals from the night before. Do you have to wamp that up to get your water boiling for your coffee?
Yeah, usually there's one of the guys around that really gets it going, but sometimes you have to restart it. Just kind of depends.
I have a friend who lives in the woods up near me, and he's like, we're going to make coffee, and they don't have a stove, so I know he's going to have to fire up his fireplace just to boil water, and I'm like, I'll just meet you at the diner, It's like, it's a lot easier.
It doesn't take all that long, but it does take a few minutes.
Hey, real quick here. I was wondering if you wanted to join the GardenFork email list. It's Maura Eric. I don't know if you want that or not. But the best way to do that, if you go to the GardenFork.tv site, there are signups all over the place. There should be one on every page. Also, in the show notes for this show, if you're listening to it in the iTunes app or one of the other podcast apps, to click on the little text thumbnail of the show, and the notes will pop up, and there's a link in there, or just go to gardenfork.tv and there should be a sign up there. All right? Thank you. So, as far as like baking bread in the Dutch oven, my concern has always kind of been like, I do the no knead method, and I've always been told that the kind of like the final 1/3 of the baking has to be done with the lid off so you get a nice crust. Is that something?
I'm not sure, because you would still need heat around the top. So, well, I guess if you're doing it on a grill, you would have that outside, the top of the grill.
Right.
I'm
not sure. I'm wondering if I could just slightly have the lid slightly ajar or something. I don't know.
You could. I do a fair amount of bread baking at home, and I have a sourdough recipe that I use, and I think I leave the lid on pretty much the whole time until just the last few minutes. So, I'm not sure about that.
That's a different one. So what other meals are you making on that open fire with your tripod?
Well, on the open fire, it's usually soups or stews. The first night, if you're getting there in the afternoon, I usually make some bean soup or something that I can halfway prepare at home and, just let it simmer for a few hours over the fire. But yeah, any soups and stews, I love to do that over the open fire because, you just raise and lower it. If it's boiling too hard, you just raise it up. If it's needs to simmer just a little bit harder, you lower it down closer to the fire or throw an extra log on. You don't have to be very precise with soups and stews. Do
you have to like check the fire every 10 minutes, or is it something you can walk away from?
No. We can walk away as long as there's people around watching the fire. But no. And we usually have, the place that we have gone in the past has always provided, I don't know what they are, truck rims or something. They're big metal, heavy things that we build fires in. So the fire's not going anywhere. But no, you can walk away because it takes a while for a log to burn down. And so, I may stir it every half an hour or so just to see how it's doing. But it's not something you have to babysit. And really, neither is, if you're baking biscuits or something, you want to time them, and towards the end, you may check on them. But you don't want to let too much of that heat out.
Right, because every time you lift that lid up, there goes all your heat.
Exactly, which doesn't bother me over the campfire, but when you're just doing it off fire with coals, then you kind of have to not check it so often and just kind of go by the time that, say, a recipe. Find a similar recipe that tells you, well, this is going to take you 45 minutes, and then don't check until 40 minutes maybe. I actually have several cookbooks. Lodge puts out a cookbook, and I think it has a chart in it that tells you coals to what temperature. I think it's meant for the kitchen, but I think they do have a section in the front where if you're doing it over charcoal, they tell you how many coals to put. All right. Top, bottom. And baking temperature chart. If you have a 12, it tells you for about 5 different size Dutch ovens. Say you have a 12-inch Dutch oven and you want the temperature at 350, you need 25 coals, 17 on top, 8 on the bottom. So it's pretty simple. If you want it to be 450, then it's 33 coals with 22 on the top and 11 on the bottom. So, and you can find those charts on Pinterest. I've seen several of them, so you don't need a cookbook for that. But
that's the inverse of what I've been always thought. I mean, I never really looked it up because you know me, I don't look things up. But I just put too many coals on the bottom and not enough on the top. So
exactly. And so when that first loaf that you made, all the heat was coming from the bottom. Some would circulate around the top, but most of your heat was on the bottom, and that's why it burned. But your second attempt, I think, was better, wasn't it?
I like to think so. I mean, was it at least entertaining to watch?
Oh, yes. All your videos are entertaining to watch. Eric, I even watched the one where you repaired your sewer pipe, and there's no way I'm going to be doing that.
Well, you're going to come on for a second show. We're going to talk about the 177-year-old house you bought just as you're getting ready to retire.
Yeah.
I have to open up my sewer pipe again. I think there's another crack. We both have old homes, and I think there's another crack in the cast iron sewer line. So
I am so sorry.
I might be just replacing the whole thing this time because I have to open the sheetrock again. And I'm like, why don't I just do the whole thing? So.
Well, I'll tell you what, our plumber has talked to us about not replacing. We have a lot of clay pipe, which is not a very good thing after a number of years. And there is a procedure where they shoot, I don't know what it is, whether it's a membrane, a chemical, something. They shoot it through the sewer pipe, and then it hardens, and it's harder than any pipe. It will not crush, and so you don't have to replace your pipes. It's not cheap. It's a Norwegian, Scandinavian, someone came up with the process, and he's gone to school to learn how to do it. And he's been trying to talk us into doing some of that.
Oh, wow.
Especially with, I mean, we've had to replace quite a bit of it anyway, but part that's in the house that's a little bit more difficult to get to, like to the upstairs bathroom, he was suggesting maybe we try that. So he's supposed to come by next week and give us the bad news on how much that would cost.
All right. Well, after he comes, then we'll get you back on the show here. So
okay.
We have to thank your pastor Sharon for hooking you up on Skype here. So
yes, he has a podcast every week, and he's got some pretty fancy equipment here. So
I like that. So
I'm not very tech savvy. So
what's the biggest thing you've made over a campfire? What's kind of like the biggest deal?
I don't know. My cinnamon rolls are usually looked forward to.
Yeah, I'm like
on Saturday mornings.
So people, the other campers from your church they know that the morning they wake up, they're going to be cinnamon rolls from Sharon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, geez. So you have more than one Dutch oven, probably.
Yeah, I just loaned my one Dutch oven to my son-in-law because he has 5 boys, and they do some camping out in their backwoods, and he wanted to show them how to Dutch oven cook. So I did loan one away, but yeah, Saturday morning cinnamon rolls.
So it was, what's kind of the biggest aha moment you had with the campfire cooking? Is there something that was kind of like a light bulb moment for you, or it was just kind of a gradual learning curve, or?
Probably just gradual. Getting, the first couple years, I really do not like, it's nothing against Coleman, great company. The Coleman stove scares me. I don't know why, it just does. And so being able to cook over a campfire with that tripod, I love that tripod. I mean, I may have it buried with me. I just really like it. So anyway, yeah, it's just been gradual.
It sounds like the tripod was kind of the seminal moment there.
Yeah, getting that just made things so much easier because you could move on from hot dogs and s'mores to, something substantial like soup or stew. And I think of course, doing breakfast over the campfire is easy, scrambled eggs and bacon, sausage, whatever. Usually I make sausage gravy if we're having biscuits and, stuff like that.
Oh, geez.
And we also have I go through them because sitting at like a rack, like an oven rack, you sit that over the fire, and then you can put your frying pan off the fire, but close enough that it's still cooking. And you can do eggs because you can, pull that off. But the fire really degrades those racks pretty quickly. So they only last a couple years, and then you have to go look for another one. Especially the ones that are made for that I've gotten like at Walmart or whatever. They're thin metal. I think if I actually found an oven rack, it would hold up better close to the fire.
Oh, you could probably pull an oven rack out of someone that's throwing a stove out on the end, on their driveway or something.
Yeah, and I should have done that when we threw out the stove that was in the house we just moved into. Yeah, I probably could do that.
Wow, what fun. So I imagine people have arrived at work now, and now they want to go have some campfire food. And now I want to go build one of these racks, so one of these tripod things. And of course, I'll want to hack it together with stuff I found.
I'm sure you'll do a great job. Yeah, but the one we have is at least, I would say it's 6 foot tall. It's taller than I am. I would say it's at least 6 foot tall, so that it spreads out. You can raise your thing up higher. Those 3-4 foot ones you buy at the sporting goods stores, you're not going to be able to raise your pot very high off the flame. And there's plenty of heat 3 feet off the fire. You can't hold your hand there. So you want to be able to lift your cast iron pot way up off the fire if you're just simmering soup or stew.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. All right, cool.
Yeah, you really need to be able to raise your cast iron pot quite a ways off that fire to keep it from burning. I mean, you can burn particles of soup on the bottom of that cast iron pot, and so.
All right, well, last question, and we'll let people go and let you go. When you're taking care of your cast iron, are you a no soap person, or are you a soap is okay person?
I would like to be a no soap person. I loaned out one of my cast iron pots to a friend, and she returned it ruined. And so I had to actually sand it out and go through the process of trying to re-season it.
Yep.
And yeah, that's no fun. I would prefer not to use soap, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do and then just re-season it.
And soap is totally fine, everyone. I will link to an episode I did about a video I did about it. Science, it's all chemical science-based stuff. It's
not going to hurt you. It's not, you don't want your pot sitting with that stuff in it, but you don't want it sitting with water in it. But
I don't use soap every time, but every once in a while you got to pull out the soap.
Yeah. I have a frying pan that pretty much sits on the stove at home, and I can usually just wipe that out. Every once in a while you have to scrape a few things that get stuck, but usually I can just wipe it out and go from there. But yeah, every once in a while you've got to put something with a little bit of elbow grease in it.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time in your morning here. You could attest to the short attention span I have, and we're trying to schedule this thing. So I got these emails, everyone. Eric, when are we doing this?
I'm not the one that really wants to do this, Eric. So. Yeah, I'd be glad to talk about the money pit we bought. We really do like the house, but it's not a cheap thing.
It happens to everybody, so.
Yeah, even with new houses, things can go wrong.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks for taking the time here.
Sure.
GardenFork Radio's executive producer is Jimmy Goots of hollowbooks.com, and our music is licensed from uniquetracks.com.